Hello, this is Angela Wright speaking from Living Energy Day, and I'm so thrilled to have Gary Little here with us today. And Gary's going to be telling us all about his Pain Unplugged approach, which is quite revolutionary and gets remarkable results. So Gary, welcome. I'm so pleased you're here.
Welcome, Angela. It's so great to be here and share some insights into pain.
Good, and how to get rid of it, I think, more importantly. So we're celebrating today with this real survey of healing work worldwide, and we have all kinds of different modalities here. And Living Energy Day is this 24-hour marathon of live-streamed interviews with innovative health practitioners and specialists located across the globe. So, Gary, you're going to be talking to us a little bit about what you do. Thanks so much for being here with us. Can you tell us what's so good about your approach and the results that you get?
One of the things that I think dealing with pain and injury, it's just such a massive industry and more costly than heart disease and cancer and sugar diabetes put together. So it is a major issue that needs to be addressed. And I believe that through my background in over 20 years of working at high-level sport, I believe we're looking at the root cause. We're not looking at the root cause of the problem, and it's being on this kind of call to do with energy and emotions. And that's the core of what we do in this epidemic. And one of the things that through my background working at from a physical point of view, I've completely dropped that right now and created a program to deal with the real issue. Firstly, we need to identify what is the root cause of the problem. Then we show, we understand what is happening, and we own that. And unless we own it, we cannot eliminate majority of the physical pain out there. And that's basically one of the reasons why I'm very excited to roll this out and with listeners that have pain, that has been on a merry-go-round of practitioners. And unfortunately, for myself being a practitioner, when we understand that we've caused the problem and we're going to someone to fix the problem, that just doesn't make sense. So we need to identify what the real issue is, and we need to own that and learn what to do to eliminate pain.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're asking people to look within, take responsibility for it, but you're going to give specific tools and techniques and methodologies of dealing with that. But before you get into that, you talk about being involved in this for 20 years, working with very elite, high-level athletes. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became involved, and perhaps some stories, and what led you to become such an expert in this field?
Yeah, I was privileged to, through my journey, work at the top level of different sports, and that gave me a lot of insight into the stance that I do have now. Is because if you haven't been there and been around top athletes and top coaches and professors, you're very hesitant to take this stance. And this is the reason why I've got my strength. And we're in a situation where I was talking to a professor at Olympic Village, and simple things we're not really dealing with. It was really interesting that I was talking to this professor, and as we're chatting, his boxing coach come over to him and said, can you, when you finish, can you come down and give some stretches to the boys? And no, this is in the Olympics, and we're talking to a professor. And as the conversation continued, when we finished, I said to him, I said, you're going to give these guys some stretches. My question to you, why is the muscles tight? And he looked at me dumbfounded and with just shock. And he said, that's the most profound question I've ever been asked. And so things like this, and seeing what I've seen and work with in locker rooms and getting people out there. One athlete, I had the privilege of getting one athlete that was going to forfeit his match, and I worked with him, and he won $2.5 million. And one of the things that I think, coming from high level sport, we think that there's something different that they do. And I can assure you, it's not. The confusion and the stories that we put out, the reason why we have pain on, is the same as where we are in the public. And my journey in the health industry has come through the fitness industry and Pilates and as a practitioner. And so what I realized working particularly at the top level is there's the same pattern within the physical body as just you and I. And one of the things that we put athletes different to, say, you and I, they're structurally the same, but they're just at a high level. And one thing that we can look at is why do we have pain? And when we identify and work on thousands of people, you create and I understand there's a stress pattern within the physical body. And one of the things that, where I am right now, I'm not a therapist, but I'm a teacher. And using that experience to empower people to identify what is happening, what's causing the lower back, rotator cuff, knee problems. There's always a stress pattern within the muscle tissue that's causing that prior to the injury, usually, and also just general repetitive strain injury or gardening or picked up a piece of paper off the floor and our back goes out. So there is always a stress pattern within the body, and I think we need to identify that. And unfortunately, that doesn't show up on scans, x-rays or MRIs. What shows up on the physical side and the way we're conditioned is a byproduct of the stress patterns within the body. And because we're not exposed to what is really happening, the full picture, we put our belief that we've got a disc problem, we've got a cartilage problem, we've got all these kind of things. But my question is, what is causing that? And so through my journey, I've asked questions, and really basic questions. If anyone that really wants to empower themselves and knowing that I'm going to the right people and I'm going to the right and seeing the right information. If you go into a practitioner, and I'm not putting practitioners down, there's so many good-hearted people, but the question that I ask is 3 basic questions. When you go to someone and they with a back problem or a neck problem, whatever modality, they've got a set of tools to use with the this particular symptom. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm sitting down with someone, and this is what I've done at the high level, asking different practitioners, if a person's got a symptom, and say, for example, back problem, I visit a practitioner or you're visiting a practitioner, my question is to the practitioner, to the professional, why do I have this pain? And of course, they'll tell you, you may have this way you're sitting, it's the way you work, it's your injuries. And then I say, well, okay, that makes sense. But why is that there? Because there's other people doing the same as what I'm doing and they haven't got pain. And they will tell us something else. Then, and we can, and the therapist will feel more reasonably comfortable with that. Then I ask the third question, and usually brings people undone as the practitioner. I would ask, the question is, why is that there? You ask 3 whys, I guarantee you the average practitioner will not be able to tell what is causing the root cause of the problem. So this gave me a lot of insight and a lot of empowerment, and that's one thing that I'm very passionate about, to teach people the real issue and roll out a process and then programs to empower people. So I've had some very exciting experiences in working at high level, And I turned my back to that is because I did not want to be a cookie cutter, like just a practitioner. It's the condition of the body before an athlete comes to a tournament is the issue. And the issue is in the tissues and in the muscle tissue. And one thing that I realize and I teach right now, that our muscles are our subconscious mind. And when we see the whole picture, people say to me when they go through the program and workshops that I do, it is so simple. And they say, why didn't I think of that before? And so people ask me how I changed this concept and what technique that I use. And I used a very simple technique is common sense, and really empower the individual to understand why we have pain. Why do we have a disc problem? Why do we have a pulled muscle? Why do we have neck pain? And so there's always a stress pattern. So I could I don't know if that answered your question there.
Well, that's a fascinating insight. And you talk about the muscle being your subconscious memory. So are you saying that the root cause of pain is really energetic imbalance or emotions manifested?
Yeah, absolutely.
It all comes back to energy, as we're seeing, whichever field you look at, wherever you go, everything is energy, and this is Living Energy Day and going throughout the year because people are going to be accessing this all year. So what are the top 3 things then, if you could boil it down, that someone should know in order to be successful in being able to manage and reduce or eradicate or eliminate their pain?
Okay, one of the things that we mentioned about energy, and one thing that the reason why I believe people do not grab hold of this and take it on and really understand it's the root cause of the pain is because we're so focused looking at x-rays and scans of byproducts of energy. And emotions are real energy in motion. And it goes through our body. And one thing that I suggest to people, and when I do presentations, how many people here have got pain? And show of hands. Then I say, so can you tell me when your pain is at the worst and when is it not so bad? Everyone. And lest we have a break or a blow to the body, I'm not talking about that kind of pain. Everyone that I speak to has a inconsistency of the pain going through their body.
Okay. It gets and flows.
Yeah. So when I get people to identify, so, okay, your pain is better sometimes and it's worse at other times. And everyone says yes. But they don't know what they're saying when they say yes. Well, if it's physical, it will be there 24/7. Would you agree? And they say, yeah. And I said, well, you just admitting that your pain is going up and down, you've admitted it is energetic. And that is suppressed emotions that are being built up in our body. And that is the root cause of your physical pain, because this energetic and suppressed emotions creates and negative emotions. We keep running these, creates a negative frequency in our body. It's got to go somewhere. And our muscles are basically half of our body weight. It does make sense that, and I'm not saying that our muscles are the subconscious mind. This is science. Dr. Candid Pert, great book on saying that our body is our subconscious mind. Well, our muscles are our subconscious mind as well. So it makes sense that I think to answer your question, Angela, I think we need to, if you still got pain, it's very clear that you are not dealing with the issue. And we need to re-educate ourselves and understand there's a stress pattern within the body. And if you activate that with specific exercises or movements, which I do purely to show that what happens, and it's all empowering back to the client. So activating, say, I speak to people over the phone, a couple of friends of mine, colleagues of mine, and generally when you know what's happening in the body and specific pain, you know what the specific stress pattern within the body. Stress patterns contract and change the structure of the body and causes irritation on the nervous system, and this contraction decreases blood supply and oxygen through the muscle tissue. And so the muscle tissue becomes weak, and we get caught up in this the physical environment of practitioners and coaches and trainers. We go and strengthen it. Well, my question is, why is the muscle weak? It's stressed. And we go and stretch it. Well, why is the muscle short? It's stressed. If we deal with the issue, and one of the things that looking at the stress patterns, then when we activate it, and this is why we do specific exercise, you'll see a decrease in pain nearly instantly, activating the right stress pattern. And I've had some amazing experience when I do demonstrations in a live audience, and just activating, for example, lower upper neck and shoulder pain. A majority of pain in the neck and shoulders, unknowing to us, comes from the arms. So I activate specific muscles in the arm. In a live audience, 95% of decrease in pain within probably 2 minutes. And so that proves to people that this is real, and it's not just something that is just a philosophy that's just been marketed and sold. So one of the things that understanding there's a stress pattern, and once we activate that, we'll decrease the pain. And so when we do that, it's total ownership. And the question for me, okay, what is causing that stress pattern? And that stress pattern comes back to emotional induced stress within the muscle tissue. So to go back to your question, is if you are on a merry-go-round of practitioners, I would suggest to maybe pull away from them, because if you're going to someone for longer than a couple of months, understand your body heals itself. The worst trauma, the biggest trauma, in 6 to 8 weeks, the biggest break in our body, 6 to 8 weeks. And if you've got pain longer than 6 to 8 weeks, you are on the merry-go-round of treating the symptom. So I don't know if that answered 2 or 3 questions of what people can do. So,
yes. So the best way to get started, if somebody's listening, they've taken in this information and they're thinking, right, sounds complicated though, what's the best way to get started?
One of the things that then again, say again, your physical pain is emotional at origin. Emotions change our chemistry and depletes our chemistry and creates stress patterns within the body. That is the first thing. Understand why. And then when we understand the root cause of the issue is emotions, and then we can sit down and say, okay, look at when your pain symptom started, what was going on emotionally months prior to that, because it takes time to build up emotionally induced stress patterns within the body over time. Mm-hmm. But depending on the severity of it, the quicker obviously it comes into the body. So we can just identify the emotions and just being aware, because we live in a society. We've got to have look good, and we want to portray something that we all the society wants to see. So we put on this mask and we bury all our emotions, and over a period of time, it's just like a pressure cooker. It'll come up if you keep feeding it, and these emotions are in molecules and in a solution, and they come into the tissue and causes contraction, and we have pain. So the bottom line is understanding. The issue is emotional at origin. Sit down and look at what has gone on in your life, and look at the emotional issue. And one of the things that Angela, what is asking questions of what can people do? The biggest thing is to understand. I call it education therapy, because once you know what is the root cause of the problem, generally a lot of the pain will drop away, and instantly. And so the big thing is education, and people be listening to this and having a lot of questions. Through my career, I've had a lot of questions, and generally a lot of the questions that I can answer very clearly, and it always comes back to, and it makes sense, and it's so simple, coming back to emotions at origin. One thing that people can do in this, if this little explanation of why you have a disc problem, or if it makes sense to you, sit down and just get a piece of paper and write everything down that you're annoyed, and everything, and start writing down 20 minutes a day, and just release your emotions, and on a controlled basis, and understanding what you're doing. The biggest key is understanding and knowing what is causing your symptom. And one thing that a lot of times, even when I'm speaking to people, firstly, they think, but I've got a disc problem, but it's my posture, it's this, even though I'm speaking to them. And we need to dig down deeper to that. And the disc problem is to do with contracted muscle tissue around the joint over time and crushing the joint unevenly. And that's what's causing disc problems. So to answer your question, to be very clear, that our emotions are causing this biggest epidemic of pain and injury around, particularly in the Western world.
Okay, I think what you're saying about writing things down makes a lot of sense, because there's been a lot of teaching, a lot of evidence around that, and teachers from Peter Hoddle to Marie Iachabella talk about writing down what it is that's troubling you. Never show anybody. This is for you. Don't leave it lying around where somebody can inadvertently see it. And sometimes when you list all of that out, and there is some connection between the physically writing with your hand and your brain rather than typing. When you physically write that out, it can be quite a release. And I've heard that the next stage can be actually writing a letter to maybe the individual who has caused some of that in your mind, and then burning it. And Shakespeare said, one of my favorite quotes from Shakespeare was, "Forgive, forget, conclude, and be agreed." And in fact, Vishen Lakhiani went on a huge journey to discover what's the biggest emotion that gives you the biggest brain spike when you're meditating, and has the most profound impact on your physical body through meditation. And nobody really guessed what it would be. A lot of people thought gratitude, but it was actually forgiveness. And so by writing down all of those problems and just letting them all come out, if you can forgive yourself for experiencing them and forgive others, then that can make a big difference. And I think that some of what you're saying, I know your methods are much more involved in that, but it makes sense on so many other levels to actually look within first before you look without.
Absolutely, Angela. One of the things that we're just going into Christmas, and adding on to that, understanding emotions, energy, and Dr. Hawkins' power versus force shows very clearly that emotion has frequency. And one of the things that I mentioned, that we live in a society that we want to be accepted. Yes, and we're going into Christmas, and I challenge listeners over the next week: how many people are doing things that you don't want to do? How many people are going to places and catching up with people? And I'm not saying just dish our family, and but one of the things that just get real with ourselves and get real with our feelings. And a lot of times we do things because of low self-esteem. And if we stand for what we want to become, everyone's got their own unique thumbprint. We're put here to do something unique for each and every individual. And once we identify that and get to our authentic self, majority of these problems will drop away.
So does this work for anybody, in your experience? Well, the question, the methodologies that you're talking about, Gary, does this work for anybody?
I think I've had...
Oh, I've lost your sound. I don't quite know why I've lost your sound, but I have. Let me see if I can fix that. I think I've lost your sound, Gary. I don't know if you can click the mute button, if that's a problem. The little microphone to the left of your screen, if you mouse at the bottom left corner. Let's see if you can switch that on, switch it off and switch it on again. Because I think we've lost your sound. Yeah, you're back. You're back. Okay. Okay. So the question. So we'll start with that again. So the question was, the last question. Does your system work for anybody?
Yeah. Obviously taking into consideration of what is how severe and how long the symptom is, like pain, and has major impacts on joints, and obviously leads into operations and deteriorations on joints, as hip and knee replacements. I think I'd be silly to say 100%, but I'm very, very blown away with this response of people, and people's lights come on, and their whole psychological and physiology will change because of more its ownership and understanding of how our body works. We are lacking common sense principles. And the more we go down the science and the scans, and we're getting so much away from what is the real issue. And the more I see technology expanding into treating different things, we're raped of responsibility. And every time I come across a new philosophy, I always ask, where am I in this? If we are not in it, where it's just another way of treating symptoms. And I think probably the big thing that I enjoy is empowering people and giving them an understanding of what is the real issue.
Okay, it's been so interesting to talk with you. It's certainly a very different approach. I know you get results from all different walks of life, whether it's chronic long-term problems, acute, athletes, normal people. So very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. And when people want to know more, where can they go to find out more about you and the methods that you talk about?
Angela, we're just building a website and it'll be up in a couple of weeks. It's painunplugged.com, and feel free to contact me through email, Gary at painunplugged, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm very, very passionate to share this knowledge, and it's not a new technique. It's just principles of common sense.
Common sense is not commonly known, though, and we are so distracted in today's world. There are so many calls on our time, 3,500 adverts a day, at least the average person is bombarded with, and we are so distracted, and it's very easy to not deal with those emotions, and then they manifest themselves energetically into problems, as you've been talking about, and as virtually all medical professionals, health professionals are increasingly becoming aware of. So lots and lots of evidence around that. Gary Little from Pain Unplugged, thank you so much for joining us today on Living Energy Day. I look forward to finding out more and utilising your methods. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for your time. It's great to be here, Angela, and have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you, and a great year to follow for everybody. Thank you, Gary. See you soon. Good stuff. Thank you, Gary. Hold on a second.